Welcome, Gemini Ascendant, Gemini Risings, your January 2021 video. The December eclipse, we also had a November eclipse. It happened at the areas of your life that were triggered. And it is these areas of your life that will continue to be triggered. When we have an eclipse, it sets up a button. Pretend there's an imaginary button. After the eclipse happens, every time another planetary body, another celestial body, comes through and passes over that same area, it's as though it presses the button down. And when it presses that button down, there's this additional thing that occurs. And it is very dependent upon which planet it is that comes through that presses the button. So it's not just a one-time event, right? We hear about the eclipses and the dates themselves are important. But what's really more important is to pay close attention to the other things in your chart. So if you are new here and you don't have a chart and you're interested in knowing what your chart is, and when I say a chart, it's an astrology chart. It's a circular thing. It is your frequency grid, I like to call it, of the time and the date and the location of when you were born. Your personal frequencies that you came in with. Everything is sound. Sound is all that there is. Sound is the beginning, right? Sound is the end. In other words, there is no beginning, there is no end. There was just the word. There was just the sound. There was just the frequencies. So what we have is an opportunity for you, if you are new, to get your chart, is to get your chart, your correct chart, into your hands. I get that to you delivered into your email for no charge. I see you in my comment section and you say, hey, G, I'm new, or hey, G, I've already been here, but I don't have a chart. I don't know what that means. I'm lost. All you got to do is get your correct birth info. Your knowledge, your chart, it is your life. And you start opening yourself up intellectually. You start allowing the higher frequencies to come through, the downloads, receiving transmissions on a different level altogether, then suddenly one day, it won't be right away, not even going to lie to you, but suddenly one day, certain things that you're hearing, that you're listening to will start to click. It will start to make sense. For Gemini Ascendant, Gemini Rising, let's take this walk energetically together. Let's go through this rising sign reading is to give you the where it happens in your Gemini life. All right, Gemini, so your November eclipse happened in your sign. That means it happened in your first house. The ascendant is the first house. The ascendant is self. The ascendant is all about me, all about my body, and not just my physical body as in the functioning of my body, the health of my body, the well-being of my body, but it is also the location of your physical body, because that is what the ascendant represents. It is the location of where you came in at the time of your birth. That is what the ascendant represents. And so with that is your time of birth, the location of your birth, all that goes into it. And when we have that, this is with us for the rest of our life. We carry those energies. And this is why we base the rest of the events, the rest of when the things move around up there, when the planets move around, when they transit, when they travel, angles. It is the angles that create the kind of conversations the planets have with each other. So a 90-degree angle sets up a square in somebody's chart, and a square represents stress and tension. A trine is 120-degree angles, and a trine is all about adding ease to your life, adding ease. Then we have a sextile. A sextile is 60 degrees away, and it adds a little bit of ease. But it's to give you a taste so that as I go and talk through this, as we walk through this together, and you hear me use the word trine or sextile or square, you have a better understanding as to what that means. I'm offering for you right here now to write those little tidbits down. That way, as I speak, you will know what I'm talking about. And I will try to make sure that I stay away from the astrology terminologies. Your eclipse was on your ascendant. Now, the question is, so what did it mean? It's in the first house, so it's all about me. but it's not just me as in the physical body, but it is also me as in my appearance, because that is what it is. And remember, the ascendant, I like to call it the cover of the book, right? You look at a cover of a book and you're like, oh gosh, and you automatically start making up, ideas in your head about, you feel like, oh, well, it looks like this, therefore I'm going to pass. Or it looks like this, therefore, hey, I might try reading this, right? Or the cover of the book has everything to do with whether you even turn it over and look at the other side, or whether you open the cover and read the flap on the inside. Just like the movies, right? You go pick out a movie and you're like, oh, Jesus, they're out of all the good ones, right? Oh man, they're out of all the good ones. So you go and you see, okay, and you start reading movie covers. You start looking at movie covers, and that's what it is. So it's your appearance. Having an eclipse where your appearance is has everything to do with how you appear to be to the world, how the world perceives you. Okay. And so all about Gemini. Gemini is talking, communicating, relating. It's neighbor energy. It's barter and trade. It's social media, talking with the fingers. I met a little girl online. I didn't really meet her. Her mom was doing a live, and I'm one of the supporters. And so I was there in the comment section watching the live, and her little girl said something that she was learning language. She asked me about astrology. She saw the name and she said, what does that mean anyway? And so I said, it's learning a new language. And she said, oh, and she completely understood it immediately. Her answer to me was, oh, well, I'm learning Spanish and I'm learning sign language. She instantly understood. It was like, wow. And so for the rest of for the time that I was there, she was like teaching us like little things in sign language, like showing us, and I know nothing about sign language, but that's a Gemini trait, right? This is like Helen Keller, right? It's learning a new way of speaking, a new way of communicating. Somebody asked me a question not too long ago. How is it that Gemini energy equals social media? As we change, grow, and evolve, so too does the way that we communicate and talk and think and relate. And that is what Gemini is. It's the way we talk and relate and communicate. And so as we as human beings, as we evolve, so too shall the meanings of the signs. So there are some signs where we have not just esoteric meanings, but we have ancient, I wanted to say antiquated, old meanings to certain signs. And they don't necessarily apply anymore because we've outgrown them. We've elevated from them. You see, this is the beautiful thing about astrology. It is atomic. It is constantly evolving and changing. But understanding the basic meanings of it mean that like Gemini, great example. If it's communicating and talking and relating, just think even as a child grows, right? A child pops out of mama. Does the child pop out knowing how to form words? Does the child pop out being able to form sentences? No. And does the child even know once they learn to speak, are they able to do this? Are they able to do that? They have to first learn how to spell before they can do that, right? So there's this elevation, there is this communication, there is this graduation of growth in change and talking and thinking and the way that we are relating. And once you understand that foundational definition of it, then you say to yourself, well, gosh, then that means one day, yes, I'm going to hit you with the big one, because this is the big one. One day, we will no longer need words to communicate. That's right. We'll communicate this way. And many will claim that they already do this, okay? And I'm not going to say that they're full of it. I'm not going to say that at all. And I know you listening, regardless of who you are, I know there have been times when you thought about somebody, and sure enough, the phone rang, and it was them. How many of you has that happened to? Let me know below. Has that happened to you? And if that hasn't happened, give me an example of something similar to that. And it doesn't have to be exactly like that. Anything in which I thought about them and they appeared, right? They popped in my head and all of a sudden they showed up. They came knocking at the door. All of a sudden I had this visual, right? Or they called me and they said, how are you feeling? And you were like, actually, I'm pretty miserable. Can I hang up and call you another time when I'm feeling better? And so you hang up, and then like a week or two later you talk, or you catch up a few days or a few hours later and you talk, and you're like, you happened to call me. And they're like, yeah. And you were like, well, it was the craziest thing. Like, here I am not feeling good, and you called me asking me how I'm feeling. And the other person on the other line is like, well, yeah, because I was having these weird feelings in my body, and I just knew they had to do with you. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to call that person and check up on them. But I have had so many people share these stories with me, where they would tell me their stories. And I love that, to create a platform where we can all come together and share those stories, because they are not freak incidences. This is an example of elevated Gemini energy. This is an example of communicating where we will no longer need words. But this is why getting our thoughts right and knowing how to control them is so important. And so that's an example of how we take communications and how it can change and evolve, how it can grow, and how it can elevate. Social media, we're communicating electronically. Okay, so don't forget Gemini is neighbors, people that are literally next door neighbors, but it's also sibling energy. It's people you're in your day-to-day routines with. So this can also be coworker energy. Having an eclipse, this eclipse was at 9 degrees of Gemini, okay, 9 degrees. Now, this being in your first house, there's a change in the way you think about yourself. There's a change in the way you communicate, the way your thoughts. There's a change in the way people perceive you. Okay, it has so much to do with you, but it also will have to do with how others in your life look at you. So we're talking December 14th because that's the next eclipse, and this is in Sagittarius energy. So if Gemini is on your ascendant, which it is, that means that at the opposite of your ascendant, right, handy dandy lighter time, at the opposite of who you are is your descendant. Ascendant is me, descendant is we. Right? We energy. This is me, this is we. And I say we energy because it's the 7th house. So this is the house of partnerships. This is the house of marriage, business partnerships. The 7th house, there are some that call the 7th house the place of open enemies, right? And we think of the War of the Roses, right? That story. When it comes to love, your greatest enemy, right? Like what sort of pain hurts the worst? From the one that you love, right? That's for, yeah. Anyway, Sagittarius energy in your 7th house of partnerships, Sagittarius energy in the placement of your significant one-on-one relationships. So with an eclipse there, by the way, 23 degrees of Sagittarius, new moon, solar eclipse, all right? So what that means is you've got the sun and the moon together. It makes a new moon, and it's a solar eclipse, right? This is a solar south node eclipse. Now, when we dissect that, well, I already did dissect it. It's in the other video that it's been dissected. So we're just going to talk about your 7th house and that it's change. We're going to keep it simple because 7th house being in relationships, significant one-on-one relationships and partnerships, I have this, we all have this somewhere in our life, right? And I am not a Gemini rising, okay? But I have some Sagittarius energy in my 7th house. How can that be, right? I have Taurus and Gemini energy in my 1st house. And this is pretty typical to have when you look at it. I'm using a tropical Placidus house system. You're going to have a house lines, house setups where they're not going to be perfect, where they're not going to all be exactly 30 degrees. And a sign is 30 degrees, which means if you have houses that are different sizes, houses can have 1 sign, 2 signs, 3 signs. It just depends, okay? It just depends on how big the house is. I know that just got confusing really fast. We're going to back up and we're just going to say 7th house, partnerships, marriage, significant one-on-one relationships. This can be business things, and this means change, okay? This means a belief, right? A belief in those things, because that's Sagittarius energy. Our beliefs. This is our philosophy on partnerships, our philosophy, our spirituality, right? Do you like to have a partner who has a similar spirituality, that's someone that is spiritual? Or maybe there's a religious thing, a connection through your similar religions, right? Or maybe you're just both religious, but maybe not necessarily one religion, right? There must be this non-denominational thing. Either way, we go through the sign of Sagittarius, right? And when we look at that, it's about beliefs, it's about freedoms, it's about truth. It's about being the seeker of all those things. It's this higher learning. It's a return to, I'm hearing, it is the, this is driving me crazy. It is the Renaissance, the return of the Renaissance, right? It's the return of a new way of thinking. It's a return of higher thinking. It's a return of intellect. It's a return of discussions, of talk, of philosophy, of ethics. It's a turn of elevation, return of elevation of thought, and to continue to learn for the sake of learning, for the sake of truth, not for the sake of this is me and this is what I believe and I'm right. And I can only believe this thing because it lines up with my beliefs. Therefore, it must be true because it lines up with my beliefs. It's a growth from that. It's an elevation from that. A seeker of truth keeps on seeking because they're seeking out truth. They're not seeking to be the right? They're not seeking to say, aha, I found this truth, therefore it's right, and I'm right, and therefore you should believe it. Therefore, we should all believe it, and that's what makes it true. No, there's a sense of ethics involved. Okay, there's this integrity is the word, integrity, which means that for the sake of learning, for the sanctity, for the sacredness of learning, we hold a high standard. We hold a high value. And as we hold those high standards and high values, we continue, we grow, and we keep searching. We keep seeking. And that is the Sagittarian arrow. So having Sagittarius energy in the 7th house, what happens is, because it has to do with partnerships, significant partnerships, it's very possible, if you're blessed, you can find somebody in your life where you can settle down with because you have a similar belief. You have, beliefs going to be an integral part of the relationship. And it could simply be our similar beliefs as to how a relationship should be, how it should operate, right? But religion and philosophy and spirituality, higher education, knowledge, right? These things are going to be important. Law, legalities, these things are going to be important. They are going to be the backbone of a relationship. Now, I realize that doesn't sound all very fun, but let's not forget about the part that says freedom and truth. This is also Sagittarius energy. And so Sagittarian energy in the 7th house means it's okay to have a partner. It's okay to be with somebody. It's okay to be married to somebody. But there will be very clear lines, normally very clear lines of freedom that are set, like boundaries of, I need a certain amount of freedom in this relationship. And because I need this, I am willing to give that to somebody else. There's a certain amount of independence. And so there needs to be a interdependency within both, right? For you and your partner. And what that means is you both have a well-established sense of self, and you're willing to go out and to live and to do and to work and explore without your partner, right? There's a certain amount of that where you do with your partner, but there's an equal amount of that you do on your own. And it is you both being able to do that, you both being able to be the seekers in your own way, in your own lives, and to go out and experience the world, and then bring that back into the relationship and share it with the other person, thereby having double the amount of seeking done, right? You both went on a journey, you both went on a quest. And when you came back and shared it with your partner, it was as though your partner went on it with you. And it was as though they got to go on it with you. So therefore, you literally double your seeking, you double your journeys, you double the quests. Now, it takes very mature individuals to have relationships like that, a great amount of trust, okay? It takes a great amount of maturity. So what happens is, because there's all that stuff that sounds so idealistic, almost unbelievably human, like how can a human actually accomplish that? How can two humans accomplish that together? Gem and Jupiter rules this sign, and this Jupiter energy is very idealistic, okay? But at the same time, it also likes to be big and expansive, and it likes to add to things. So the more experiences, the more significant one-on-one relationships that it has, the more it learns about itself, the more it feels like it's relating and learning and getting closer to the truth. And I'm saying and going through all of this because you might be experiencing this in your own life, in your own significant one-on-one relationships. And if you aren't now, maybe you already did, right? And if you aren't now, maybe you eventually will. So understanding the process, understanding the thinking, the feeling, the believing of that Sagittarian energy, being that seeker, and seeking for the sake of learning, of trying to gain universal wisdom and knowledge. Wisdom is a big deal with this sign, okay? Very big deal. And it can't get it standing still. It gets it through experience, right? It has to experience the world, and it can't experience the world one-on-one. It has to do it with its relationships with others, all right? And so many times when I see this placement in a chart, it's a difficult placement to have Sagittarius energy there. Now, does that mean, oh my God, I'm doomed, I'm never going to have a serious relationship, or I'm never going to be married? No, that's not what I'm saying, and it doesn't mean that. What it does say, that there's a predisposition, there's an inclination at birth where it might take harder work, it might take longer work, it might take more greater levels of self-awareness to be aware of you seeking other relationships. And you could very well be blessed with a chart where you have other factors, other planetary lineups that add ease to this for you, that help this sort of energy be balanced. And if it is, then what I'm saying will sound foreign to you, right? There may only be a little bit of it that sounds familiar, because you may be like, well, I thought I've, kind of wanted to do something like that at one time, but I ended up doing something else and it worked out really well, right? But for those where they may have a lot of planets in that 7th house, in that Sagittarian energy, that means it concentrates the experiences. And it means that what I'm saying becomes more real to them, because a concentration of energy, a concentration of Sagittarian energy, of Jupiter energy, in essence, in that 7th house means I need to meet a lot of people. And I need to feel like we're having a significant one-on-one relationship with all these people. This is an eclipse, and you're having an eclipse in your 7th house. If there's been difficulties, if there's been issues where things just were not working out, an eclipse can come through and end something. It has that possibility because it's a South Node eclipse. And a South Node is been there, done that, mastered that, and it's time for me to move on now. And yes, we're talking about significant one-on-one relationships. If you want me to take a quick free peek for you, just comment below. And we can have that kind of a conversation somewhere else. If you want to work with me, just hit me down below and let me know. And Saturn and Jupiter at a tight conjunction, it is in the sign of Aquarian energy, okay? And this begins a new phase. This begins this beautiful new beginning. And it's going to be felt globally. We're going to find out where is your Aquarius energy in your chart. Because the beautiful thing for you, Gemini, is that Aquarian energy is air. And it matches who you are. And that is a trine. So remember in the beginning, I said, what does a trine mean? It adds ease to your life. So when you have Jupiter and Saturn moving into Aquarian energy, it's going to trine your ascendant. So if you had difficulties with thinking and communicating and relating, if you had difficulties with people in your community, if you had any sort of difficulties with yourself and with your body, if you had any difficulties with your hands, because Gemini rules the hands, or difficulties with the lungs, because that is also Gemini energy, the lungs, Saturn is going to bring help and assistance, and so will Jupiter. They're going to establish rules and boundaries, borders and boundaries. They're going to establish order where there was once chaos. And this is going to be order being established to help groups, to help the way we function with our friends, to help the way we function in our group energy. This is all what Aquarian energy is. It is science stepping in and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is all new. We are all still in an experimental stage, but this is to help us in the long term. And so this is beautiful. This is beneficial, Gemini. You're going to be getting this help. I'm going to tell you where your ease energy, 2 areas of your life, could be 3, and it is your 9th house. This is where your Aquarius energy is. This will help your belief systems, okay? Because Aquarian energy is getting Jupiter energy coming in. Aquarian energy is going to be receiving Saturn. There's going to suddenly be a structure and an order to the way that you believe, a structure and an order to higher knowledge, a structure and an order to traveling long distances and journeys. Do you have a job that's in the airlines? Do you have a job that has something to do with aviation? Do you have a job that has something to do with utilizing devices or equipment that somehow help humanity advance? That's what Aquarius energy is. It's that think outside of the box, extremely individualistic. That 9th house is also, I can speak and touch in with God. The 9th house with Aquarius energy there is you're receiving downloads from the universe. So having Saturn come in with Jupiter, okay, Jupiter helps to balance Saturn out. Okay, so Saturn doesn't feel as tight, but at the same time, Saturn can also take away Jupiter's ability to expand with all the rules. They come in with this beautiful balance, establishing structure, making things better, and it sends trine energy to your first house, to your ascendant, and this is wonderful. This will assist you. This will give you help in all areas of me, all areas of my body, all areas of my appearance, how you appear. Remember, the cover of the book. Now, the third area of your life that you have your air energy in is in your fifth house. Now, your fifth house is where your romantic energy is at. It's where you have fun with your body. This is also children, the house of creativity. This is also joy, having fun, risk-taking with my body. You have the sign of Libra is in that placement. The sign of Libra is significant one-on-one relationships. There's something about this for you that is very exciting, because even though I just talked about an ending possibly in the seventh house with the eclipse, when Saturn and Jupiter move, it sends a trine to your house of romance. Now remember, that fifth house is also dating, mating, relating, right? Which means, like, if there was an ending of some sort, all of a sudden you're going to get help and assistance. All of a sudden, online dating, talking on the phone, relating, communicating, social media, whatever all that is, going to the online sites to pick up a partner, all that stuff. So this is your first house, your fifth house, and your ninth house. Remember, first house is me and my appearance. Fifth house is fun, children, joy, creativity. Remember, it is also the placement of procreation. So you want to be careful. Ninth house is my beliefs. It's my belief about my future. And having Jupiter and Saturn there will set up structure and order for you in your life. But it will be change. And a lot of people don't like change. So it will not be odd at all if at first you feel very uncomfortable. You should expect that, because that just comes with change. But what's going to happen is, as we slide into January, so when we get to January 5th, we have Mars moving out of the Arian energy, right? Mars was in, I'm ready to fight, Arian energy, and it's moving out of there. And it's going to go into Taurus. So what happens is, where does Mars move into Taurus, right? Like, where is Taurus energy in your life, Gemini? When I look at your chart, you have Taurus energy in your 12th house, okay? And the 12th house is Christ consciousness. It is we are all one, right? 12th house is kumbaya. 12th house is the hidden, right? You can't see my hand anymore. It's gone. It's hidden, right? It's just disappeared, right? Is it really there? Yes, it's really there. But in the 12th house, you just can't see it. But does that mean it's not there? No, it doesn't mean that. The reality is it's still there. But see, that's the mysterious 12th house. It can make something suddenly disappear, or at least it appears to disappear. Now, this is the house of dreams. Okay, this is the house of dreams. So what happens with Mars moving into your 12th house, I would expect to have more physical dreams. Like, some people have really wild dreams. Some people say, oh, I can't remember anything. When Mars transits through a location like the 12th house, you can expect to have amplified physical dreams, right? Where they're literally just physically more active, more action orientated. It's like the difference between seeing a movie and it's like a drama or a romance, right? As to an action flick. So you could have some things like that occur. But what will also happen is Mars being in the sign of Taurus, it's fixed energy. It's fixed earth energy, okay? Fixed earth. And I need to point this out because what we have coming up is a square in January. First 2 weeks of January, first 3 weeks in January. Once we get to the 5th of January, to be exact, that's when Mars hits Taurus energy, all right? Mars hitting Taurus, there's a change, because for a lot of people, their Taurus energy is their income, is their money. And Taffy has joined us. Drum roll, please. Come and bless us with your presence, beautiful girl. So Taurus is your income, okay? And if it's in your 12th house, there could have been income, there could have been money that you had that was hidden. And if Mars shows up, it could all of a sudden make that appear, right? That's what it is. Mars shows up in the sign of money. It's your values, all right? So this means you have hidden values, because the 12th house represents subconscious, right? When I say dreams, it's when you're asleep, literally. It does represent sleep and dreams, but also the subconscious realm, okay? And so there may be hidden values that you have and that you weren't aware of, and Mars will let you know about these things because you'll have an experience. Something will happen. You'll meet somebody, or there'll be a conversation, or there will be an event, and you'll somehow either have to make a choice or have a decision to make, something that will somehow help you clarify and define that which you value. Let's get to the 5th of January because that is exactly when Mars goes into the sign of Taurus. But a few days later, literally 2 days later, on the 7th, it's already at a degree where it becomes conjunct with Uranus. Ooh, cattail. January 7th. And then January 17th. These are big dates for Mars energy because Mars starts to be conjunct Uranus, which is a shock and a surprise, okay? Because Uranus is in Taurus. So all you got to know is January 7th, so January 6th, January 7th, depending upon how sensitive you are. Some people, they may not notice anything until January 8th, okay? So we'll just say January 6th, 7th, and 8th. Mars conjunct Uranus. It has to do with income. It has to do with your tangible resources, but it can be non-tangible, meaning just things you value, people that you value. It also can do with love, self. How do I value myself? There might be something that occurs, and I can't tell you much more without seeing your chart. I would have to see if something in your chart angles this. But on the 17th, okay, this is why I mentioned the 2 dates. Come the 17th of January, Mars will square up with Saturn. Okay, Mars squares up with the Saturn energy. And so fixed air and fixed earth do this. That's a big square. And it's uncomfortable, right? Squares represent stress and testing. Now, in your life, this is your 9th house of beliefs. So in your 9th house, your belief about something, all right? Your belief, your 9th house, remember, it's higher education, it's traveling long distances, could have something to do with being on a plane and flying. Your beliefs about these things, okay? This is truth, seeking freedom. This is also higher education, higher learning. This is knowledge and intellect. This is freedom. This is a placement where having the freedom of thought, having freedom of speech, having freedom of religion, because you would be super unique, super individualistic. And if you aren't, then you can be sure that at this time, all right, the whole goal of Uranus transiting, okay, wherever it moves in a chart, the whole goal of it is that Uranus is trying to teach you how to be more individualistic, how to be more unique. And this is super important in our world at this time because we're coming to an ending of an age. And there she is. She freaked out because I said that. There's Taffy, see? She showed up, no wires. We're coming to the ending of an age and we're moving into the age of Aquarius. And the age of Aquarius is all about operating in a group without sacrificing my individuality. And so as a whole, okay, this is confusing, but we're the people, all the little people within the big group, okay? We need to understand that who we are individually and our uniqueness, it is to be cherished. It is to be brought to the light. I need to see how you're unique. I need to see how you're different from the next person. And I want to cherish it. I want to love it. I want to embrace it. I want to say, great. We need someone like you because we have nobody like you. We need, for those who don't know who they are individually in a very unique way, if you haven't been focused on that, if it hasn't come to you yet, it's going to. This is a big time for that. This is a preparation for that. And many started this phase, back when Uranus went into the sign of Aries, all right, 7, 8, 9 years now, it was in the sign of Aries. And Aries is the individual. It's, oh my gosh, this is who I am. And so there was a lot of people who started doing things they never did before. They were these latent energies, and this is what this is. So when Uranus comes around, its job is to get you to know that part of yourself that's hidden. It's, what somebody once told me, Uranus is the sign where it allows you to raise your freak flag, to be proud, to say it loud. And that doesn't necessarily literally mean the word freak, but it just means you're unique. And this is good, right? It's freak. It's FREAQUE, FREEK, whatever, however, whoever, right? They, them, we, us, whatever. It doesn't matter. The whole point is whoever you are, it's time to embrace who you are. Okay. You're going to be loved for who you are as you are. All right. And that growth process and that seventh house stuff, this has a lot to do with that. It's a time of you were pretending to be somebody you weren't, right? And maybe not 100% of you, right? And I don't mean 100% of you that I'm talking to. I mean, you have 360 degrees to your being, all right? And for you, as I'm talking to you individually, you understand who you are. There's degrees of your being where a large portion of those degrees was to satisfy what mom and dad wanted, was to satisfy what an ideal partner would want you to be like, right? And now it's time for you, for me, for everybody to understand, don't change who you are for somebody else. Stay true to you. But the process of staying true to you isn't always easy. Okay, it's not always easy. But here at Allastrology, this is a place where all are welcome who come in a good way. You can be whoever you are. You just come in a good way. You come with peace in your heart. You come with love and acceptance of self. Because if you can do that, you will then accept another, regardless of who they are, right? Regardless of who they think they are. You will learn the art and the beauty of love, which is to accept. And so when we talk about the month of January, there are those energies where there's that stress and that tension, but do not let that bring you down. In fact, start now to learn how to increase your light. Hone in, focus in on that which you know makes you feel better. Start practicing, start participating, start being involved in any sort of an activity that makes you feel good about who you are. I love myself. Therefore, I can love you no matter who you are. And this, I believe, is true for every being. Animals accept anybody for who they are, unless they bring harm, right? Unless you're speaking hate, then that's not okay. That's not acceptable, right? But if you come in a way of harmlessness, then yes, it is time for those who are ready to embrace unity, ready to embrace love, who are ready to embrace we are all one. This is a time of change. This is a time of elevation. This is a time of do not make a choice out of fear, but make it out of that which you desire. Make your choice out of the opposite of fear. Make your choices out of love.